Hello.
Hi, welcome back to Shower Talk with Tina and Norm. Last time was the first time on video.
Uh-huh.
Now I've added a couple cameras here and there, and we'll see how this goes. But we didn't say the name of the episode.
Oh, we didn't?
No, we didn't. Or not. We said the
Oh.
name of the episode. We didn't say the name of the show, which is
Oh.
funny. So we went 42 episodes on,
Spot
just regular podcasting. On audio and the time we go video, that's the thing we leave out. So it's Shower Talk with Tina and Norm, episode 44.
Yep. Are you an ostrich?
Are you an ostrich?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's so many jokes, but it's so early in the episode that maybe I'll not do that. What's it mean? What do we say when we're talking about are you an ostrich?
Well, we know that the ostrich syndrome, as people call it, is people who choose to not pay attention to what's going on around them and bury
Right.
their head in the sand and not deal with things. It's just easier, whether it's completely ignoring everything, ignoring people, being addicted to drugs, sex, shopping, alcohol, whatever. Those all
sound great.
ostrich.
I don't know. I'm kidding. Obviously,
I guess if you're trying to numb yourself.
right,
Yeah.
right. Well, that's ultimately what it is. Or you're just, the way I picture it is hiding from anything and everything.
Absolutely.
It's avoidance, right?
Avoidance
it's just
is a good one.
A big way of saying, I don't want to deal with this, so I'm just going to shove my head in the sand.
Yes.
And I guess with our own situations, for those that didn't listen to the first 43 episodes, or those that are just joining us for the first time because we're on YouTube now, there's 43 other episodes. Go listen to them. But, both of us having previously been married and going through divorces and coming out of that, there's a lot of shit to deal with, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff to deal with. And a big part of that is it's not a popular thing because everybody wants to blame the other person for why their marriage failed.
Of course. It's always someone else's fault.
Yeah. But the problem is you have to figure out what I don't know if I want to say
how
we're
you
doing wrong.
participated.
Yeah, there you
yes.
go. That's
you
a
weren't
good
doing
way to put
anything
it.
wrong. It was how were you participating?
Right. You were working with what you knew.
Correct.
But obviously what you knew was incorrect.
Or it was with the wrong person.
Yes.
That's
Agreed.
the other part of it is
Agreed.
It's like trying to, not to sound simple, but trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing.
So it's funny, we just started watching this show and this is, what we do, obviously. Those that know us know we watch trashy television and talk about it a lot of times. Because they're great examples of what not to do in your life, right? And there
even though it's on TV,
there are some that are, we go from one episode, and I'm sure this is the Hollywood way. They want you to hate this person, and then the next episode you're like, oh, they're not so bad. We just did this. So we're watching a show on Netflix called Selling the City, right? Apparently it's a series of other shows. So they're selling the OC and selling. I don't care about those. This one was in New York, and we watched all the other ones with what's his name, Ryan Serhant and Ryan. Yeah. So it was funny because we were watching it. I think it's like the second episode in, the person who's in charge of her team. It's a real estate agency. She's got a team. She's had them for about a year. It's all women. That's. I mean,
all women from New York. FYI.
Sorry, it caused me to twitch a little bit. It's funny because you could have a team of all women and they're going to be one way, and you could have a team of all guys, and while they might get along, is work going to get done? I don't know. They might fuck around all day. Who knows? But the one was having a conversation with one of her realtors and giving her advice or telling her about her marriage, that she's, well, you don't seem happy and all of that. And your reaction was what? What was your reaction?
I thought she was stepping over the lines a little bit.
Yeah.
The way she was it was almost like it felt like she was trying to tell her to leave him.
Yeah. So
I mean,
she could work more. That's what it seemed like, right?
Well, and she also said, I'd love to see a single you doing this job. And I was like,
right.
What?
Right.
Like,
but I feel like as we watched it, she was telling her that she didn't seem, I mean, she was validating what the girl was telling her already. She was saying, you know, yeah, you don't seem happy, you know, if it's not serving you anymore, then you have to make a change.
Yeah.
And this young lady clearly has been an ostrich for a while. She knows there's a problem. She can openly admit there's a huge problem in her marriage.
I mean, you don't have to be blind to see when you watch them interact on the show together that there's no connection there whatsoever.
Right. So she's not dealing with it.
Correct.
And she's just going to keep being miserable.
Yeah.
And that's
her choice.
Correct. It is her choice. But this is the thing that sometimes I don't know if people realize how much they're actually hiding from.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to be afraid of it. It's not going to be great. It's going to suck for a little while because you got to take your fucking head out of the sand and look at it, you know.
Yeah.
You watch a scary movie, the monster, if you put your head under the blanket, he didn't go away, right? No. He's still there. When you take the blanket down, you're like, oh shit, he's still here. I thought this was supposed to work.
That's a good analogy.
Oh, you know, I'm good at analogies. With the state.
I think analogies. I think it's like, even with us, we always tell everyone we're not therapists, we're not doctors, we're not professionals.
Right.
We're literally just giving, you know, our opinions and our, you know, experiences. It's obviously based on you as an individual, me as an individual, our own situation. I think the common theme though is that we were honest about stuff, right? I think the hard part about giving someone advice, like the reason I kind of was like with her, is how honest was this girl being with her about what's happening, right? Because usually when you're complaining to somebody, you're complaining about the other person. However, you're not talking about how you contributed to that.
Right.
Right? And so I'm the person, when I'm listening to someone complain to me, I'll say, so that sounds like a little one-sided. How did you get to that point? What was the conversation before then? And some people get pissed off at that because they just want to complain, which, by the way, complaining to me is like a cancer. It spreads really fast. It's not doing anybody any good, and it's fucked up. And I wish people would learn that they're chronic complainers. And it's like a fucking disease. Yeah. And for me,
they're addicted to it.
I think so. I'm not interested anymore in it. Like, you have to earn the right to complain, and you have to be fair in your complaint, right? Yeah. How far, if this is your problem and you are all the way up here and trying to solve it, okay, you earn the right to complain. But if this problem just popped up and you're already bitching and complaining and you haven't even tried to resolve it, I'm sorry, you have no credibility for me. I don't want to, and I'm not interested personally. Right. You have to earn the right. So I think the problem is you're getting advice based on, like, if she took her advice on that, she doesn't know what her contribution was. Like, you know, later she talked about taking in her sick dad and paying all this money for her sick dad. Her husband might be resentful of that.
Could be.
He might be resentful that all this money they've been putting aside for their future or do whatever, but you don't know that part because she didn't give that part. Or they edited that part out. Let's be fair. It's possibly edited out. Let's talk about what we saw.
Well, we have to base our
on
judgment
what we saw.
On what,
correct. Because editing's bullshit, which is why we don't do it.
Right.
You can't say you're real, but you're editing.
Right.
So I feel like that's the part that's why I was kind of like, ugh, because so part of it was she wanted her to be more successful for the team. And I really do believe she cares about the women on her team. Yeah, however, this one wasn't telling the whole story of what's going on. Right. Yeah. And so that's why for me, a lot of times, like, if someone asks my advice, I'll give it, but I also have to dig in and ask more questions.
Right.
And sometimes people just don't want to, they just want a quick answer of, tell me I'm right, or tell me it's not my fault. And you're not doing yourself any favors.
Right.
That's ostrich.
It is. And I think, this could be a whole other episode, of course, but I feel like in the case of the show, because we did find out episodes later that she went behind the boss's back to try and get money from the agency or a front for money because she's trying to do a number of things. She fell behind because of her dad's illness.
Yeah.
They're trying to do surrogacy or whatever, right? So those things kind of already set her up as not being truthful.
Correct. Right.
And the issue is the person going to them, we don't know if she was looking for her advice or not.
Right.
Right. So that's one of the things we have to know as a person. And we've had these conversations a bunch recently. Is this person just complaining to me or are they looking for advice? Now, if you're in a specific role as a manager or an owner of a business or whatever, okay, you may not have a choice but to take action. Sometimes you can't let some things go. Right. But the person that's coming to you, if they're looking for advice, you have to give the advice, like we just said, based on what you're presented. Mm-hmm. If that person follows through with the advice and it doesn't work, they are the only ones to blame if they weren't honest about what they were looking for or about their situation that they were trying to get advice on.
Right.
So if you go to somebody and ask them, oh, Becky's being a bitch because of this. Well, you didn't tell the whole story.
Right.
It's part of it's missing.
That's like 99% of people's stories.
Right. Their side. Yeah. Their side. And it's super skewed. And usually it's to get somebody on their side and to feel validated. Listen, that kind of validation isn't real.
Nope.
It's false. It's fake validation, false validation.
So then that brings me to like when I was a teenager. So like I literally, anyone who's known me my whole life knows that I'm exactly the same person as I've always been. And as a teenager, one of my biggest pet peeves was if you're gonna, I don't want someone to lie to me just to not hurt my feelings. Like you're not hurting someone's feelings on purpose.
Sure.
However, if someone told me this and they knew the truth was really this, but they didn't want to hurt my feelings, so they let me believe this.
Right.
And let's say 6 months or a year went by with me believing this, even though this was the truth.
Yeah.
Eventually the truth comes out, right? So let's say 6 months to a year later, I find out the truth. And now, not only do I have to deal with the truth and the fact that I've been misled or whatever this, like now you're dealing with like betrayal of someone, like for me. And I used to say that to people. Now I feel betrayed because you don't love or respect me enough to tell me the truth. You let me believe this. So now you let me go along and live this and just wasted 6 months or 12 months of my life doing this when you knew already.
Right.
But you didn't want to hurt my feelings. So I get it. And I'm not someone who wants to walk around and fucking hurt people's feelings. However, the hurt feelings, if you realize if your feelings are hurt, that means that the person cared about you. And let's say not always, right? Because sometimes people are just assholes trying to hurt your feelings.
Okay.
But someone who truly loves you, like you and I the other day, you said something to me. It didn't really hurt my feelings, but I was kind of upset about it. But it was something I needed to hear because I found myself going in a pattern that I haven't seen in a long time, but something triggered me.
Right.
And thankfully you were able to tell me. And although in a moment, it's like, oh, that sucks that you said that. However, how quick was I able to recover from it and realize that it wasn't real and that it was an old feeling that got triggered or whatever. But to me, that is more important than hurt. Like your feelings get hurt, you get over it because, and if here's the other thing. If your feelings are that heavily reliant on your partner, your family, whoever, you're kind of fucked in this life, by the way, because that means if you're in a bad mood and I'm basing my whole life on how you're feeling and you're in a bad mood, I'm going to be in a bad mood for no reason.
Right.
And I'm going to be hurt and sad and feeling insecure and you're going to fight. I mean, it's like, I don't think people realize you're trying to stop this little bit of, oh, you hurt my feelings instead of this big shit storm of everything else that comes after.
And I think a big part of that, using the example you gave is how, we talk about this all the time. How are you hearing it?
Yes.
Because, someone's trigger is their trigger.
Correct.
Okay. You can't trigger them unless you know that's their trigger and you intentionally do it. Then that's a whole different,
of course,
that's a whole different conversation to have. But if somebody, like I did the other day, and it was me talking to you about other stuff that was happening, and it was things you were getting upset with, and I was giving you the other side of it.
Yeah. Which
so
I
that,
love, by
so
the
that
way.
you can stop and go, okay, nope, you're right. Like I'm mad about this, but do I have a right to be mad about it ultimately? Or is it, you always have a right. I would say,
is it necessary?
Is it rooted in reality?
Yeah. Right.
Kind of.
Right.
And I just said, if it's bothering you, then then I won't tell you anymore.
Yeah.
My options are to talk to you about it or just not tell you about it anymore. And that's where the trigger got.
Yeah, I was
because, well, this goes back to, the whole thing is about ostrich effect,
right,
and how to recover from that. And how to recover from that is doing the deep dive on things.
Yeah.
And the deep dive, well, we'll probably episode 100 we'll talk about the deep dive. We just haven't prepped for it. Actually, no, we'll do it the next episode.
Okay.
So you heard
it's
it here
longer.
first. You heard it here
first. It's gonna be a longer episode.
Well, we could probably kill it in an hour. But it's next episode 45 will be on the deep dive. We will talk about that.
Okay.
Because I think people understand what it is, but you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, be honest with yourself about, like you said before, your participation in a relationship, whether it's a love, and this is an ongoing process.
Right,
so
absolutely.
The deep dive helps you figure out your triggers,
who
and
you are as a person,
right, and how to deal with them, and exactly who you are as a person.
It's healing, by the way.
Correct.
It's got a different word, healing.
Right. Right. That's the effect.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes, depending on how you grew up in your life and the trauma you've had in your life, whether it's emotional trauma or, from family, whether it's physical trauma, it's all shit you got to deal with, because it's all shaping all of your relationships
and your reactions to how you deal with things in life.
Right. Right.
Addiction is a big one, right? So trauma, most people who have addictions have
some sort of trauma. Right.
And it's usually a pretty severe trauma.
Right. And they're trying to work something out, or that's their outlet, or whatever it is, or it's their version. In talking to my brother, like a lot of times you get on certain drugs, especially when you're talking about like heroin and oxy and that kind of stuff. It just numbs you. It removes you. That's just a different version of the ostrich effect. You're taking the drugs. It's just like sticking your head in the sand. You have no emotions about anything.
Correct.
You don't feel it. You're numb. You're out of it. Nothing bothers you anymore.
Even the people who get put on antidepressants,
right?
They lose emotions. Like I just was talking to someone the other day who said, I don't like that I literally have no emotion. Like I literally don't care about anything and have no emotion. And I don't know if I should go off or not, because I don't like not having that. And I'm like,
I will say,
you have to talk to your doctor about that.
Yeah, 100%. You have to talk to your doctor about it, because
don't stop taking it.
There's a lot of those things, people that take Xanax, and I can say this from personal experience, not me specifically, but, people will take Xanax because of anxiety. The problem is you take it regularly. As soon as you stop taking it, that is one of the medications that has a rebound effect. So, if your anxiety is already at a 9 and you go off the Xanax because you don't want to be dependent upon it, now you're going to possibly jump higher than the 9 for a little while until you figure out how to bring that back down. And the problem is then they go back to it. Same way with any other kind of drug that's creating the ostrich effect, causing you to hide and put your head in the sand.
I think what most people don't understand, like it appears easier to go through life like this. It appears easier.
It does.
I'm not,
right.
I don't see this. I don't see this. I
Yeah.
don't see that. I don't see anything that's happening around me. I'm just walking my way through life and things are blowing up and falling around me. And I'm like, oh, whatever.
Right.
The
right.
problem
it's like the
is
little dog with the fire going on. Everything's
right,
fine.
exactly.
Yeah.
The issue is people know if they're not happy in their job, in their marriage, or their relationship with their kids, with their family. People know that they're not happy.
Sure.
And my favorite line is, what am I supposed to do? That's just the way it is. Or relationships are hard, or marriage is complicated, or no. Life is fucking messy, and life is it can be complicated.
Mm-hmm.
However, it doesn't have to be, and you're choosing to stay places that you don't belong.
Right.
I mean, no one likes to make moves. I get it. Like, I mean, we're running into this in our neighborhood right now. I'm on the board of our condo association, and we just made a huge change of property management companies, and it's like poof, like the whole, everybody's like, oh my God. I mean, like, it's a good, everyone knows most people know it's good. I'm not gonna say everyone. Most people know it's good. It was 100% something that needed to be done for the betterment of the community and to move forward. However, no one likes change, myself included.
Yeah.
However, you have to you need to do it. And as we keep reminding people, we're in it together. So that's the other thing. When you have the right people around you. Now, the right people doesn't mean you vote the same way I do. You go to the same church that I do. You eat the same food that I do. You like the same team. None of that shit fucking matters, right? You can have people that are complete opposite sides of everything I just mentioned and still have a commonality in their heart and the way that they treat other people.
Sure.
That's how I see people in my life. Thank God. That I'm not someone who goes, oh, you drive that car, you vote here, fuck all that shit. None of that shit matters. People have their reasons why they do things, whether they're their reasons or they were thrust upon them by their family and their culture, whatever, another story. But I think the thing is that the right people are the people you can count on. The people that tell you they're going to do something and then show you that they did it, that they made a commitment and they're not going to walk away. They're not going to start something and then be like, oh, I started this, but it's like coloring in the coloring book and then and you just walk away and you don't finish the picture. Like, you have to finish what you start with that. And it actually also gives you personally a sense of accomplishment. Mm-hmm. Like, I just talked to someone about this the other day. This shit is self-care. Self-care isn't bubble baths. I mean, it is, but it's not bubble baths and massages. It's also, I made the right decision to leave a job that I know I'm miserable. I cared about myself that much that I pulled myself out of an environment that was no longer serving me well, that I was, I was having anxiety or not sleeping or whatever. That's fucking self-care.
Right.
But it's like we watch all these people walking around. I can't. I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. Yeah. We always have a choice. You just don't like what the choices are. And there's a difference between not having a choice and not liking what your choices are.
Right. I agree with you on the self-care. I mean, I agree with all of it. But the self-care part, I think they confuse pampering with self-care. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a form of it. You're allowing yourself time to relax and recuperate and get energized, put yourself in a better headspace. There's nothing wrong with that stuff. You need that because the other stuff is hard.
Right.
So you do have to take care. If a massage is your thing, that was really hard to say. Then do those.
Yeah.
But you know what? And I'm going to tease you a little bit because you get such a great effect when you go have a massage, and I've told you for probably 4 years to schedule them regularly, and then you don't until you're like, oh God, it's sore. I should probably call to get the massage. I'm like, if you had done it every 2 weeks, you probably wouldn't have that problem, and that's okay. But it's important to schedule those things for yourself because one, it gives you something to look forward to, be excited about. and it's helping you prep for the other hard stuff.
Yeah.
Or even using the example of the massage, maybe it's not prepping you, but it's making your body in a better shape so that when you go to deal with it, you're not already tense and aggravated about it.
Right.
So
the stress.
it doesn't
relief.
matter what it is. If it's fucking golf, if it's frisbee
Exercise,
golf, you
yoga.
know, if you're one of those nerds, plays frisbee golf, you know, you can play frisbee golf. Whatever it is, you know, whatever your passion and your interest or hobby is, woodworking, you know, if you like to relax and watch stupid videos on YouTube where it's mindless and they're building a house and you just sit there and watch it for an hour. Okay. You know, if that relaxes you, that's fine. Read a book. Read a book. But I wanted to go back really fast and touch on the part that you talked about, meds for depression.
Yeah.
You know, you did mention it there. I want to make sure people understand, don't just go off those medicines.
Do not.
They might not be right for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes, especially if you haven't been taking them for a long time, and sometimes even when you have been taking them for a long time, they may not work for you anymore, and your doctor has to adjust them.
You have to make
you
sure you're
shouldn't be numb. Okay. You shouldn't be emotionless. But you don't jump off of them, because if you actually need them, you know,
agreed.
You have bipolar or something like that, going off of them, it can create a whole manic episode for you, or anything, right? You don't pull yourself off of those meds because you don't know what the effect of it's going to be. Sometimes you have to be weaned off of them and you have to start on a new one. When you start on a new one, there's going to be a period where you're a little off balance, possibly, until that medicine starts working for you, and it takes time. So, you know, I wanted to go back to that because I don't want anybody to be like, well, you know, first off, we're not ripping on those meds at all. You know,
if you need them, you need them.
Correct.
Correct. Everybody's body is different, and everybody's needs are different. That's why I always tell people, no two people are alike, in any facet of life.
Right.
I mean, even siblings, DNA, you have the same DNA, but different body composition, different physiological, you know, the way you handle things. Like, I mean,
but don't just stop taking the meds.
Agreed.
You know, you work with your doctor. If you don't feel like you're getting what you need from that doctor, find a different doctor, get referrals. Just don't do that. It sucks. I'm sure I've never had to take them. I've seen people that have taken them and they do act numb, or they haven't. And I think that's usually an adjustment, or it's not the right med for you. So it may not be, but stick with it. They'll find the right one. And then sometimes they may have to change down the road. So just be good with that.
I think also the other thing, going back to the other stuff about hiding.
Yeah.
The funny part is that you find out when you go through the deep dive that in reality, the shit that you're scared of, like, here's the funny part. As human beings, we fear that which we do not know or understand, right?
Yeah, right.
So if you grew up in a neighborhood where everybody looked like you and you didn't have other people of other colors or other races, when you're older and you're around it, you're scared because you don't know them. You don't know the culture. You don't understand the way they live, except for what you've heard.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
What you've heard, what your family taught you, what TV shows you watch, and, you know, whatever. So the influences are, you know, it's, again, that's why I say sometimes it's not your idea of things. It's someone else pushed it on you. You kind of have to understand that. So once you understand, you know, here's the thing. You don't have to agree with everything or with everyone around you, whether it's someone who's in opposition or, you know, someone that's an ally. You don't have to agree on everything. If you're agreeing on everything, somebody's not listening.
Yeah.
Or somebody's lying. If you literally agree on like every single thing, and it's like there's no like, because even like we'll talk and I'll be like, oh, da da da, and you'll be like, I agree, and then you add something, or I'll say and then this, like, so it's not that you don't agree, it's just there might be a little bit more that you have to add to it, right? I'm not saying that walk around and disagree with people. What I'm saying is, if you're walking around, everybody's, you know, I know people aren't being honest. Like,
Yeah.
You're going along with the crowd. I mean, we even just see it on shows. I'm just going to vote. I don't want to do that, but I'm going to do it because I don't want anyone to look at me funny, or I don't want anyone to be upset with me. And it's like, but then we wonder why people are walking around miserable.
Yeah.
You're walking around miserable because you are choosing. You are choosing to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
You are choosing to eat someone else's shit and take it and then be upset about it. And then the unfortunate part is shit rolls downhill. So someone just did that to you, and then you took it, and instead of saying something back or sticking up for yourself or giving whatever your opinion is, now you just threw it on to the next person. And then before you know it, everybody that saw each other in that line of people throughout the day got pissed off.
Right.
And they don't know why, because they ran into some asshole on the road or some bitch at the grocery store or whatever, someone on the phone. And that transference of energy. Why?
Right.
Because we're all making bad decisions throughout the day, that we're choosing to live lives that we don't really want to live because it's easier.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's not easy to walk away from a job. It's not easy to walk away from a relationship. It's not easy to take a break. And that's the other thing. You could take a break. Hey, you know what? Like, let's say your family gets together every single Sunday or whatever, and you don't want to go every single Sunday, but you go because if you don't go, then somebody's going to be mad at you, or they're going to talk about you or whatever. Okay. However, you're going and expending energy that you don't want to expend, having conversations you don't want to have, participating in things you don't want to do. Okay. How are you feeling about yourself right now?
Right.
Are you giving yourself self-care by forcing yourself to do the things that you don't want to do just because of other people's opinions? So you can say, I just did it for the holiday. I just didn't have the energy to hang out. I wasn't mad at anyone or upset at anyone, and I chose to stay home.
Right.
Because I didn't want to be that bump on a log sitting there like, or faking conversation.
Yeah.
Because it just, and I felt better. Like the next day I woke up refreshed.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Not only did I rested, but I also, I didn't give in to expending energy that I didn't want to expend, having conversations that, whatever. And I felt good about myself. And I didn't hurt anybody.
No,
I wasn't mean to anyone.
You weren't expected to be there. You weren't bringing the turkey.
Right. But still.
Right.
I made the decision not to go.
Right. And I think the key is this, I know we've mentioned this before, and people talk about choices, and we may have even done a whole episode on that. Mm-hmm. I can't remember at this point. But you may not like the choices. Mm-hmm. The choices may not be great.
Right.
But you still always have a choice.
Correct.
And one of those choices is to not do anything and just sit there.
Yep.
Hide your head in the sand. So that is a choice. But you're just going to you're like an ostrich living Groundhog Day, because you're gonna wake up and you're gonna deal with the same shit because you haven't dealt with it.
Correct.
So you're putting up with the same shit, maybe is what I should say.
Yep.
And you don't get anywhere. You're just on that hamster wheel.
It doesn't change if no one's willing to make the change.
Right. You and Bill Murray are waking up on Groundhog Day doing the same thing over and over.
That's like limbo for me, and I fucking hate limbo.
Right.
Nothing worse than limbo.
Well, ultimately it is limbo. Yeah. Because if you're at a level in your maturity or in your life or whatever you want to call it. So in your progress, that's actually your journey to get all hippie. But you're at a level, but you're stuck there because of whatever reason, and you're just not dealing with it because you know it's not going to be fun to deal with.
Right.
You're not going to go anywhere. So you are limbo, because all that's happening is you went from here to here only to find that you're stuck for some reason, and whatever it is you're dealing with or not dealing with is preventing you from getting up to here.
Agreed.
And sometimes that could be a business relationship. It could just be a personal thing that you need to go through, right?
Yeah.
So it could be anything. But I think, what we're typically talking about is relationships, but your relationship with yourself is just as important.
It's actually more important than any other one.
Right. Because you have to know who you are in order to be successful in anything else, because you're not going to, you're going to go in a relationship and it's going to tank. Okay. And I'm not saying this for everybody, but you go into a relationship, you're not a healed person. You haven't done the deep dive. You have no fucking clue who you are.
And you probably chased after the same thing that you had in the previous
Correct.
one, but with a new person.
Right.
So it feels fresh and
so
exciting.
You haven't learned what your patterns
Correct.
are. Or
Correct.
you have, but you're like, oh, it's my pattern. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
That's not fucking helping anybody.
I don't know why that's funny, but
so
okay. Yeah.
It's who I am. That's what I like. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, my life is terrible. Hashtag everything's fine. Okay. No, I'm going to use that, by the way, because I think that's hilarious. I wish I could emote words on Instagram when I go hashtag everything's fine. I wish I could make it sound like this, but I can't. Anyway, I digress. You're just, if you haven't gone through that, you're destined to fail at the next relationship. It might last longer.
Mm-hmm.
It might not last as long as your last one, but there's a good chance because unless you do it in the process, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But if you haven't changed anything and you keep your head in the sand, it's going to turn out the same way. The unfortunate part is you might be that person that just keeps your head in the sand so long that 15, 20 years has gone by and now you're how old? Trying to redo it. And it doesn't get any easier.
And so that's why some people won't do it. I'm too old now. You're just stuck.
Right. That sounds familiar. Yeah. Not between us, but there's folks we know that, what am I going to do? I'm this old now. Yeah. I know I can tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
But they don't change it because they just figure out what's the point now.
Well, it's scary to start over. But
the point. The point is your fucking happiness. The point is your happiness.
I think some people don't want to be happy.
I don't think they know what it means to be happy.
I don't know.
They think going out and having good dinners and hanging out with certain people all the time, even though those people don't give two shits about them, whatever, is happiness. And
I guess maybe that.
if
surface
you
level
go
happiness,
home after hanging out with them and you don't feel happy and excited that you want to go hang out with them again, then it's not fulfilling and it's not happiness.
It's surface happiness.
Yeah. It's another form of addiction. It's like shopping therapy, right?
Yeah.
I'll tease you about that. You'd be like, oh, I bought this thing. I'm like, oh, you had a little shopping therapy?
Right.
You'd be like, oh, I have like 7 packages coming. Needed a little therapy, did you?
Oh, thank God it doesn't happen anymore. But
no.
It was during COVID, I hate to say it, but
it's not like crazy
Instagram
stuff. It's all stupid stuff.
Yeah,
little things.
Like
it's not
dick pens.
Yes, correct. Right. Dick
and
pens.
sweary pens and stupid shit I don't need.
Usually stuff that says fuck. But I'm just as bad. It'll hit me. It's not therapy, but it's, I do it. But the point being is you go through the deep dive to figure out who you are, because then when you're with someone, you're going to find somebody that's probably more aligned with who you are.
Yeah.
And you're happy. And it's not because you're with that person that you're happy. You're happy. And you're happy to be with that person. So you're happier.
Correct.
Right.
That person's an add-on to your life, not...
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we can go through, we could touch more on that on, our next episode. But I don't know why I like to pan to the camera and play to the camera. I think it's funny.
Because you're Jim from The Office.
I am. Yeah, I'm Jim from The Office. You're my Pam. I just get so distracted with stuff. In your case, when we first started dating, people would say, and the thing that I learned from you in a lot of our conversations is you were happy where you were at with yourself. And it was important to you that I knew that it wasn't due to somebody else being there.
Yep.
If you're hinging all of your happiness on another person, then you're not happy.
That's correct.
You are in that moment, but what's going to happen when they're gone? You're going to hitch your wagon to another star? Like that's going to make you happy? Or are you going to figure out how to be good for yourself?
And that's why people are tired mentally, because they're always chasing things that don't belong in their life.
Agreed. It's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that actually not one of the things, multiple times there would be people that would say, "Oh, I love that you're so happy now that you have Norm," and it's kind of it. Their intention isn't bad,
No,
okay, but it's a little insulting to say,
it was to
"Okay,
me.
I didn't, I needed somebody to make me happy, right?" And you weren't in that place. You didn't need it, and I had learned that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're happier because we
Yeah,
have each
of
other
course.
in our lives. But if we weren't here, would it suck? Sure, obviously. But we would still be happy with ourselves
Well, that's because we made the
happy.
decisions we made, which were tough decisions,
Right.
and went through shit that we needed to go through in order to get to the other side.
Correct. And
So,
that's, but I think that's an important distinction for people to think about,
absolutely.
because just because you found a new partner and now, oh, everything's
Yeah.
great. Oh, everything's great. And you're telling your girlfriends about him. Oh, yeah, he makes me so happy. Does he? Does he? Yeah, he does. You know why? Because you don't know how to make yourself fucking happy.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was thinking about how the girls are like, oh, I want someone who's going to treat me like a princess. Do you treat yourself like a princess?
Rapunzel, I think, was a princess.
No,
And she
but
was
I'm
stuck in a tower.
but I'm
right?
just thinking about, like, some of them that I've heard them say that, I see what they do to themselves. They're not being the, like, so, I have this theory I shared with a young teenage girl that was having some bully issues at school.
Okay.
And
The year was 1987.
it was just a couple
just
years
kidding.
ago.
Oh, okay.
She's a very sweet
Mhm.
girl, and run, like, she could throw a football like a dude, and she runs really fucking fast. Like, she's very athletic.
Yes.
And some of the more popular girls at school, she lives in a different town than, whatever. She lives in the whatever. So she was kind of bummed about it and trying to understand it. And we were over at the house having, hanging out with the parents. And she came down. And so I sat with her, and she was, I think at the time she was like 13 or 14.
Sounds about right.
And that's a tough age as a girl anyway. But so I said to her, she told me the story about what happened. And I said, here's what I'm going to tell you. And I'll share this with people, because this is my theory, and this is how I see girls. I said, have you ever heard of chocolate bunnies? The chocolate bunnies that you get in your Easter basket? And she said, yes, I love chocolate bunnies. And I said, okay, so there's two different chocolate bunnies. There's a solid chocolate bunny and there's a hollow chocolate bunny, right?
Mhm.
And she goes, yeah. And I said, so you're a solid chocolate bunny. So you bite in, it's hard, and it's solid. There's no breaking it, right? You've got to work really hard to break
delicious.
it. Right.
It lasts longer. It's
okay.
Right.
The
Strong.
hollow bunny, you hold it in your hand and like barely touch it, and it cracks.
Right.
It just busts into pieces.
Right.
The insecure, bitchy, stuck up, snotty, bully girls are the fucking chocolate bunnies that are hollow, that break it. They look really wonderful on the outside.
Right.
They ain't got nothing on the inside. And they know it, which is why they have all that on the outside. This is what I give to people. I'll suck you in, or I'll be such a nasty bitch that everyone's afraid of me, and that's whatever. Personally, I never wanted people to want to be around me because they were afraid of me or intimidated by me. If that's the case, I don't find you as a friend. I don't know what the hell you think I am. I don't like it personally.
Right.
But those that do, so I told her, you always want to be the solid chocolate bunny, not the hollow chocolate bunny, and you're the solid. And she just smiled at me, and she was like, I could work with that, right? And it was funny because several years later, she had mentioned it to her mom about it, and and she brought it up about, like, because now she can visualize, like, because I said to her, when you're looking at them and they come in their little group of hollow chocolate bunnies, in your mind you just think about how easy you just go, like, you could literally say your dress looks ugly, or just stare up at their Botoxed foreheads, or whatever, and you don't even have to say anything, and they're just so upset now because their whole world is on the outside.
But they pretend they're not upset.
Of course they do.
They go home and cry,
but
they
they
get
did.
pissed off,
Right. But that's my point. So you don't, and you just go on with your day, and you're just yourself. So to me, there's the chocolate bunnies and the solid bunnies. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's a big part of it. So these girls that are like, I want to be treated like a princess. Then stop being the fucking hollow bunny.
Right.
Make yourself, for yourself, the solid bunny, and then you will get someone who treats you like a princess.
Well, and you need to define what that is. If you need to define what that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Princess Diana was a princess, but look what happened to her.
Yeah.
It's.
But she was the people's princess.
That's correct. But the point being is.
And she did things her own way for herself to make her own happiness against everybody. Right. But she went against what she was, quote unquote, supposed to be doing, which was great. She made herself happy.
Right. I agree. The point is you have to define what that looks like for you. And determine, is it for, is it just for validation? Are you looking for people to say, oh, you're so pretty, Mean Girls shit? Or is it, you want to be treated like a princess because that person sees you as a princess and not a pompous, stuck up fucking princess. You're someone special to them, and they value that because of who you are to them and in their life. So I think you have to understand what that means.
Yep.
And I think especially young people, they're still trying to figure themselves out.
Of course.
So I'm going to pick on them a little bit. But we know that they don't know shit yet about life and what they want. There's some.
They learned it on TikTok.
They did learn it on TikTok. Maybe not anymore. We'll see. But you have to take the time, especially if you're a young person, because if you can learn it when you're younger, then your adult life, your older adult life is going to be so much easier because you know what you want.
Yeah.
You know how you really want to be treated, and you're not going to settle for less. Now, it should be realistic, okay?
Of course.
It's got to be realistic. We can't be you can't have this movie idea of how it should be. But, because it may not happen because it's too far out there to actually happen. It's not rooted again in reality. So,
right. Yeah. We all wanted John Cusack in the 80s, a boyfriend like John Cusack. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
All I had was a Walkman. That's just not, and it was in my own ears. It doesn't have the same effect. It was playing Sir Mix-a-Lot. It's not as romantic. Sorry. But yeah, I think I love the hollow bunny analogy for people because it gives you a very good
visual.
Yeah, it's amazing, and then you just want to picture certain people.
That's literally how I see people when I'm talking to them. Like I just said this yesterday when I had lunch with a couple people. I see healed people and unhealed people. It's like it's easy to see that kind of stuff, but also you can see the hollow bunnies and the solid bunnies.
Right. No,
and you don't have to tell them,
no,
oh, you're hot.
No.
But like for me, I'm like, okay, like and then it's like you choose who you want to spend your time with. Again, so the reality is, if you're a solid bunny and all the hollow bunnies are the way they are, why would you want to be in that group? Like you're chasing and trying to get into this group. You can't rely on any of them. Not only because of the fact that they could crumble in a little bit of a squeeze, but they're not even loyal to each other.
Sure.
They're not like, I mean, if you think like some of the shit you see on the shows, like the movies and stuff, that's some real shit. Like the Mean Girls
could be
turning on each other. And I remember seeing that back when I was in high school.
Right.
Like I thought you guys were like I would watch the groups because there was all these different groups. And I'd be like, I thought you guys were friends, but you'd see like this one talking bad about this one, or this one cheating with this one's boyfriend or girlfriend, and you're like, I thought you guys were friends. So that's why I was kind of always like, very choosy. For me, I don't care what you look like. I don't care where you come from. I don't care. Like I literally have always been attracted to people who have a good heart, who are real people.
Yeah. Period.
End of story. Those are real connections. And to me, since I was a kid, that's all I ever wanted. Those are all the things that you could say you have all these friends, but how many of those friends that you have can you call in the middle of the night to come and pick you up at the airport when your flight was delayed?
Right.
Or how many of those friends come and comfort you when your husband leaves you, or
Sure.
you know, your wife dies? Or I mean, like, think about, like, there's people, acquaintances are fine, but I think sometimes people overuse the word friends.
Yeah, I think first off, I want to go the point you made about you're the solid bunny versus a hollow bunny, and why do you want to be around them? It's okay if you're around them,
Yeah.
as long as you have the right idea about who they are.
Right.
And if you know who they are, then you don't have to worry about being taken advantage of or being hurt, because you know that's who they are.
That's correct.
And you're
if
accepting.
You know that.
Right. Now, it might take you getting hurt to know that, and then you have some decisions to make. But if you already know they're kind of, you can tell if they're vain or whatever the issue is that they have. You know, they're
bullies.
Misfit toys or something like that. You know, yeah, they're bullies. So you know that. I mean, shit, if you can't figure out who's a bully nowadays, based on all of the we got rid of. We got rid of stop, drop, and roll so that we could talk about bullying all the time, right? Nobody knows how to put themselves out if they catch on fire.
And then also anonymous bullies. Those are my favorite.
Right.
You're a bully because you won't show your name and whatever in your face.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. You know, so you know who these people typically are. Mm-hmm. And if you're able to hang out with them and that's something you want, at least you know what the game is and you know who they are. So you just don't put as much into them. That doesn't mean you're not friendly. Doesn't mean that you can't socialize and do fun stuff with them. Yeah. But you're just not putting all of your eggs in that basket, because a bunch of them are probably going to get broken, right? Yeah. So you can't do it. And it's especially young people. You know, adults, you hang out with fewer people as time goes on, and you know it's even more important. Hopefully, you've honed that. Yeah. That bullshit detector with people. Sometimes you haven't, and you're going to learn, and then you
have to wonder why, if you're a solid bunny, you want to be like a hollow bunny. What's the
well? I think there's a difference if you want to be a hollow bunny versus want to be around.
Well, that's what I'm sorry. That's what I meant was you're chasing them. Is what I meant was you want to be like them or be part of them, and I don't understand why you. To me, that's going backwards. Yeah. Because the solid bunny is where you want to be. Yeah. No, I agree. And you already have that, and that's amazing that you already have that. You just have to keep building on that. Right. Right. And she is. I mean,
well, and it's funny. So the last thing I'll say is, you know, again, talking about the TV show that we were watching, Selling the City. We're not sponsored by them, but if they want to sponsor us, we'll, it's just, again, one of those trashy TV shows that we had to finish off. But it was funny because this one girl for a couple episodes was talking. So there's one person that's not on the team that works in their office, and she's been friends with the main person for a number of years, but she's kind of a bitch. Oh, she's not kind of a bitch. She is a bitch. She's like she's manipulative. Two-faced. Oh yeah. She's two-faced, you know, that kind of shit. She's mean. So she's a mean girl. She's a mean girl. This other girl decided she wanted to call her out, and they had this party, and she decided to call her out at this party. And she actually started it off nicely. Can we talk? And the girl said no. Like, what? Yeah. All right. So then it sparked this whole thing and turned into this giant argument and stuff. And the girl that wanted to confront her said, you know, oh, really? You haven't been talking shit about me? I know you told so-and-so I'm ugly or whatever. And then the chick walked away and she said something else. And then the girl came back and it turned into more. And she said, you know what? Yeah, you are ugly. And then the girl said, you look old. Well, she said, no, she said you're ugly. And then she said, you look old. And they got into it a little bit about that. And then the girl that wanted to confront her ended up crying. She did. About the fact that I can't believe she said I was ugly. She said, I thought she was going to walk away or she was going to deny it. Right. The fuck you. Okay. So now she thinks you're ugly. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? She cried on TV. Yeah, she cried on TV because she was not ready for that confrontation. Plus, she might have had some alcohol in her. I'm thinking that was a part of it. But she still cried over that. Out of everything, she cried because the girl thinks she's ugly. And she said, she doesn't know what I've been through and how I feel and all this. Nobody does. But you know what? Why do you care if she thinks you're ugly? She's not ugly, by the way, but
that's an unhealed person
right.
there.
She the other girl didn't win. Nobody won this argument, by the way. They just wound up being pissed off and went opposite directions. And one was screaming at Netflix, and the other one's
going to sue everybody,
crying because she got called ugly. I'm like, really? Like, you were all ready for this fight. That was the first thing she confronted her on, too.
Yeah.
Not all of the underhanded.
I know, all the other.
This girl did all this other underhanded shit to these other realtors.
To the team lead who's her friend.
Yeah, talking behind their backs, trying to recruit them over to her side or passive. Oh, I'd love to have you on my team, but so-and-so's so great. Come on, bitch. We know what you're doing. Like, it's so lame. But you cried over being called ugly. Like, there were so many more important things. Like, what? I was just like...
Led by ego.
It was hilarious.
The ego, by the way. Well, the ego is part of the Hollow Bunny, by the way.
Yeah. Right. The ego is part of the Hollow Bunny. That's going to be a name of a book. You're like Confucius. I'm
just saying, if you think about it, that's all ego.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I was like, I watching it, I was like, what the fuck? And then even talking about it now, it came back to me. I went, how sad was that?
It was messed up. It was very awkward.
Yeah. But that young lady... And
everybody at the party was like,
Well, she clearly has some issues. Mm-hmm. And she said to the other girl, she doesn't know what I've been through. Well, sounds like you haven't...
Correct.
Done the deep dive to figure out what that is.
Nope.
Because none of them are ugly per se. It's maybe their personalities are kind of ugly.
Well, to me, that's how I judge people.
Right.
Based on
based
on who they are as people.
But this girl has a boyfriend or fiance or whatever he is that, they showed him a few times. Obviously, he loves her. He looked like he was going to be a douche. He turned out not to be as much of a douche as we thought he was going to be. At least in this episode. The next episode could be a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was funny. And that's, at that moment, she was trying to be a solid bunny, but she's not there yet. She could get there.
She can, but that's the whole thing though. If you are this is why I said the anonymous thing. If you're going to post something on social media or send a text or an email because you're not right in front of that person and you wouldn't say it to their face.
Right.
I don't have any respect for you.
Well, they don't.
You're not. That means that you want to be able to say what you want to say and you're not giving the other person, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it goes back to confrontation and people
I know,
aren't good with that.
Okay, then don't post it, don't say it, don't text it.
Right.
Don't say it in an email, I meant, right? Unless you can have a conversation face to face and talk to the person face to face. Like, this is part of the problem. That's why people stay unhealed, and then they hold on to it, and then they drag 500,000 other people into it in a chain. Now, This person didn't see it this way. Now they see it this way, and now it became this becomes now this person's delusion became this person's reality, and it's like again, it's like fucking cancer spreading. Stop with that shit.
Oh, I even had it. It's funny because I just had this with a coworker. An email had, we were having a problem with something at work, some of our software, and it's not getting the attention that it deserves. I mean, we're a 911 center, so maybe you should fix it. But no, let's just keep it broken. That's okay. We'll figure out a different way to make it work. It's just lives. Don't worry about it. But my coworker was sending emails like, hey, what's the status of this? Staying on top of it as they should be. And it got something, this software went down, and we caught it and told him about it. Turned out it had been down for 10, 12 hours or whatever. And the response back was, oh yeah, I saw that right before your email came. And, I reset it and then it was working, but we didn't know. It just started magically working. We're like, what the hell happened? And then, our boss sent an email back, and we include all of the supervisors so that everybody's informed. If you're there, you know what's going on. And it just went back to the one person, and I had to stop. I had to stop her and go, okay, hold on. Because the way the email read was almost like passive aggressive. And I go, nope. I go, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's trying to diffuse a situation and trying to do humor, but that wasn't necessarily the time to do it.
Yeah.
But my coworker she was mad, she's like, what the fuck? I didn't fucking, and I'm like, okay, hold on. I go, let's think about who sent it and what they were trying to do. Right. Because she's ready. She's like, I'm going to send an email back. And I'm like,
but that's what happens, right? Yeah.
Right. It gets out of control.
It does.
It gets misinterpreted.
And it doesn't do anybody any good. And everybody wasted all their energy on it.
And in his case, so our boss's case, there's times that, I'm emailing because I don't have a choice. But anytime something comes up, I go walk in there and I'm like, hey.
Exactly.
I go, what do you mean by this?
Exactly.
Like, this is how I'm reading it. And then it gets cleared up.
Exactly.
That's fine.
And then guess what? You didn't do this fucking thread and chain and whatever. It's like you go right to the source. Did you say this? Did you mean it? Hey, I just got your text. Did you mean it like this? This is how I read it. Is that how you meant it?
The key that I would say there is for the person that has someone come and talk to them, right? Well, I'm not going to use the word confront. Come to clear the air about something. You shouldn't view that other person as being aggressive or a bully. They're trying to clear up the air. And that's your opportunity.
Yep.
And if they are trying to be that way, who gives a shit? That's your opportunity to take the high road and be like, no, here's your answer. And then leave it at that.
Yeah.
If they want to fizzle out and be pissed off or
if they want to waste their energy, but you don't let them waste everybody's energy.
It's like a little bottle rocket. Boo. Okay, it's done. And then you're like, okay, let me clean up the garbage and I'll go back to work now. It's the same thing.
No, I agree. I mean, because we all want to run right in. I mean, I'm guilty of it as well. Oh, I'm going to go in with this, fighting. And then I laugh at myself. Like, do I really need to waste all my energy on this?
That?
Yeah, I think I do sometimes. I think, yeah. I might do that sometimes.
I noticed.
Again, let's go back to what we said early on. Acknowledge.
Yes.
I acknowledge my participation. I will acknowledge if I've done something, incorrectly, aggressively, prematurely, whatever my participation is in something, I will gladly acknowledge.
Yeah,
but it's not 100% on me or 100% on someone else.
No, right. I agree.
So, I mean, again, going back to that, to finish that up is you have to see how did you participate in the relationship?
Right.
How did you participate in your position at your work? Like, because a lot of times it's all, I give all this. What did you give really?
Right.
Like, what if your giving is only 50% and the person you're giving it to is someone who gives 100%?
Right.
Your 100% is 50. Their 100% is 100. So you say you're giving, but to them, it's not. You're only giving half of what they would give. You know what?
And we talk about all these relationships. You need to take the wins of when you do something good and it's a bigger thing and you get accolades for it and recognition for it. A thank you. That's recognition, by the way.
Yeah.
Or some appreciation for it. Take that as the win. And don't get pissed off when you don't get accolades for little things. Like people see it, and there are people that recognize it, but don't look for the accolades for every single little thing that you do.
And you're right, just because you don't hear them.
If you need that, then you need to ask yourself why. Is that why you did it? Because if you did it for that, then you did it for the wrong fucking reason.
Well, some people say that's what keeps them going.
Yeah.
But well, but then you have to me, that means that's someone who feels like a hollow bunny that has no self-worth and self-esteem.
Potentially.
That needs to work on why they don't.
Right. So
that's for a different day.
Ultimately, take your heads out of the sand. Keep them out of your ass, right?
And by
don't
the
put
way,
your head up your ass.
The confrontation part, when you take your head out of the sand and look around, you don't have to be an asshole. And you don't have to be mean, and you don't have to be aggressive
It's not about
with
that.
people. No,
it's about healing yourself and dealing with what's going on.
Like the conversation we had the other day where I said, because, right, I didn't say you triggered me on this, right? You've never heard me say you triggered me.
Right.
And it was something that happened the night before, and I was taking a shower, and you were driving, and I was like, I was sitting in the shower, and all of a sudden I just... From it was just a weird, where the fuck did this come from kind of thing. And thankfully, I was able to talk to you. Like, that's...
You got out of the shower before you talked to me.
Well, yeah. I mean,
this is shower talk, but we're not actually in the shower.
And I mean, and then I called you and said, hey, I just got ready. I'm getting ready to go, blah, blah, blah. And this came up, and apparently I got triggered by this. I don't know. I didn't realize it or whatever, but here it is. And thankfully... and it wasn't and it wasn't mean. We weren't like, you know what I mean? I mean, I got sad, a little bit emotional because it brought me back to some things. However, the great part is when you've gone through the deep dive and you've got the healing, you're able to distinguish the difference between what is a real feeling and what is a fabricated feeling based on a trigger.
Right.
That's the
which
great
is
part.
important.
It's fucking amazing to be able to do that. And then it just goes away. But it really goes away. It's not you're lingering and thinking about it and holding on to it, and it's building inside of you and creating doubt and more. And that's what people don't understand. When you don't deal with shit, it stays in there. Insecurity gets thrown in there, guilt gets thrown in there, shame gets thrown in there, and it keeps building up, and all of a sudden that's all you're thinking about, and that's all you're reacting to, and that's all you're attracted to, and then you wonder why your life is miserable.
Right.
Because you got all this shit in here that you didn't clean out.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the truth.
Yeah. So
and stepping down on it doesn't help. Emotional
colonoscopy.
Hey, there you go.
That's a new one. Hashtag emotional colonoscopy. Don't use that. It's trademarked now. Anyway. If anybody wants to reach out, obviously, we're on YouTube now. Shower Talk with Tina and Norm.
Yep.
You kind of have to type it in that way because there's some other shower talks out there. Imposters, posers. But, we're newer on there. Email realshowertalk@gmail.com.
real.shower.talk.
Mm-hmm.
On Instagram.
And then Facebook is Real Shower Talk. Yeah. So, suggestions, comments, you can leave them on YouTube now. You can comment on the podcast, which is audio form is on Spotify.
And as always, we appreciate the support and everybody listening.
Yeah.
We love when we run into people that we had no idea were listening, and they tell us how much they love listening.
Right.
And how much it's helped them. Like, that's the whole purpose of this, was to be able to share insight to help other people that maybe don't have the avenues, or maybe they're stuck and now, woo.
Right. It gives them an idea.
Yeah.
So anyway, till next time.
Bye.